Hello and welcome to the Arise interview. 60 minutes of big questions about the big stories from the news and beyond with fresh insight and critical analysis. I'm Charles Anyegulu. Coming up in the next hour, as China brings its coronavirus outbreak under control and eases lockdown measures imposed on the country, African businessmen and students speak of a backlash against them. They say they are coming under attack and are being forced into another stint of quarantine. The Chinese government has responded to concerns of discrimination by calling China and Africa good friends, partners and brothers. So what's really going on there? We'll cross to China to speak to the president of the Association of the Nigerian community in Guangzhou. We'll also speak to the pioneer secretary of the Nigeria-China Friendship Association in Lagos. And later, when will a coronavirus vaccine be found? As the world's leading scientists and pharmaceutical companies race to achieve results, the World Health Organization, the WHO, is playing a leading role in trying to coordinate these efforts. And there is talk of success within 18 months or less. We'll speak to a WHO research officer who's also an infection prevention and control specialist about the latest research and development in a moment. Now, as you may have heard, tensions are running high in the Chinese city of Guangzhou over coronavirus rumors. The government appears to have brought COVID-19 under control, and one of the key methods was a nationwide lockdown. But as those restrictions are eased for the Chinese people, Africans living in China are reportedly being forced into another stint of lockdown just for them. African students and business persons have been speaking about being forced back into quarantine by the authorities, with some saying that they've been evicted from their homes or hotels and others not being allowed to get supplies or even food to eat. We'll assess the veracity of those claims in a moment. But first, African diplomats in China and their governments on the continent have been meeting to address those concerns. Nigeria's Foreign Minister, Geoffrey Onyeama, held a joint news conference with the Chinese ambassador, and they had this to say.
I am getting from our officials in China, who have done an excellent job, led by the ambassador in Beijing and his staff, and our acting consul general in Guangdong and consul general in Shanghai. The message I am getting is that they're now on top of the situation, that the Chinese government and our officials there are working closely together. Of course, it didn't help either that one of the Nigerians who was asked to be confined and taken to hospital, shown to be positive, or rather refused to be tested, got into the hospital, having been positive, and then wanted to leave after a week. And they tried to restrain him, and he bit the nurse, the lady nurse, and assaulted the nurse. Of course, this did not help the situation either. So we are on top of the situation.
So from the embassy, we see the minister, the government, is taking very seriously of the issues Nigerians raised to their government. And we respect and we admire their working style of cooperation. The minister, I should say, have said all that. We're totally on the same page. So very briefly, just some very quick remarks. First, a friend in need is a friend indeed. China will never forget the invaluable support the government and the good people of Nigeria gave to us during the most challenging stage in China's fight against COVID-19.
the Chinese ambassador to Nigeria, and before him, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Well, for more on the tensions between China, Nigeria, and the rest of Africa over the COVID-19 pandemic, I'll be joined in a moment from our studios in Lagos by the Pioneer Secretary and current trustee of the Nigeria-China Association, Professor Bola Akinteriwa, who is also a former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. But first, let's speak to the president of the Association of the Nigerian Community in China, Maximus Ogbonna, who joins me on the line from Guangzhou. And I'm talking to him on the phone because, according to him, China does not allow apps like WebEx, which we use for some visual interviews, to be downloaded in the country. Maximus, good to talk with you. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear it clearly, loud and clear.
Right. We've been hearing reports that suggest that Africans from various countries, including Nigeria, are being pulled out of their apartments and forcibly evicted even when they've tested negative for coronavirus. They've been forcibly taken into quarantine. Is that true? Is that a fact?
First of all, we need to know what is happening first before we jump into conclusion. I can give you a little background. In the news, we are hearing about China, the issue, but I need to clarify us that this is happening in only one city out of the many cities in China. For example, China has 23 provinces, right? Guangdong province is one of the provinces in China, okay? And Guangzhou is in Guangdong province. Guangdong has 21 cities. So Guangzhou, where I live now, where I'm talking from now, is one of the cities in Guangdong province. So the story is, China has battled the virus to a standstill. They believe that all the virus has been cured, right? So now the cases they have are imported cases. So they believe that the foreigners in China have the virus, okay? And that's why they began to fear, afraid of some foreigners, And there was a Nigerian also admitted in the hospital, okay? I went to see him, I know him, I have visited him in the hospital, and I heard his own part of the story. He said he did not assault the nurse, okay? He bumped into the nurse when he wanted to escape from the hospital. He bumped into the nurse, and the nurse got injured. Okay, and he apologized. I went to see him myself. It's not hearsay. I went to see him, visit him, and I spoke with him. So the incident got on the news. And it triggered more ejection for Africans and Nigerians. Actually, many Africans were evicted from their apartments, from their houses, and that made them to be on the street. As of last week, okay, and some of them in the hotel were also evicted as of last week. But now things are getting to normalcy. Things are getting to normal. African ambassadors and consulates have meetings together to make sure that things work out well. But for now, things are normalizing. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed for setting all that out for us. The reason, obviously, why we are forensically talking about this is to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Because, there have been periods in the past when there have also been not necessarily COVID-19, but incidents of attacks on foreigners and on Africans in China. And I just want to know, from a personal point of view, have you experienced any of this treatment from the Chinese yourself? Are you in quarantine now as you talk to us?
Actually, when I came back to China, I traveled to Nigeria from January to March. When I came back to China on the March 7th, I was quarantined, for 14 days, which is normal, okay? So last week again, on the 8th of April, I was asked to go on quarantine again. I have to cooperate. I didn't know why, because I tested negative. From the first one. So I was asked to do another one. 14 days, making it 28 days. But today's evening, I was asked to stop. I've done it 7 days already. But I was asked to stop. The quarantine. So that's it.
So you're out of quarantine now then. And I mean, do you feel quite secure going around? I mean, and because what we want to establish is the limits of the quarantine and where abuse takes over from that. Because I mean, it's perfectly reasonable for the Chinese to quarantine people. The Nigerians are doing it as well. If people are coming into the country, they're quarantined for 14 days. Do you feel that the way that you were treated in quarantine, the way you were taken into quarantine was justified, and that there is a difference between what you've experienced and the abuse that is alleged that's being meted out against some Africans there?
Asking people to go on quarantine is good. Is good, but the approach was not good. The approach, it was not good. It should be a good thing. So I found out that it was a communication problem. Do you understand? So, for example, one of our counselors, came and was angry, asking the people, did you inform the consulate that you were arresting the people and forcing them into quarantine? One of our consulars here, so he was angry, So if they have informed our embassies or missions, consulates, it's very simple, But people were, they go to people's house and take them and put them in quarantine. So that's it. So that's the reason why people think it was strange, So there was a communication problem. But the quarantine issue is good, but the approach was the problem.
So what's been the official advice to you from the Nigerian embassy? Because obviously you're the president of the community of the Association of Nigerians there, and you are a sort of conduit for getting information out to other Nigerians. What's the official advice to you from the Nigerian embassy?
Yeah, the Nigerian embassy, like I told you, they were not informed, So it was strange to them. So they asked us to cooperate, after a series of meetings with the government or officials from Guangzhou and Beijing, So they asked us to cooperate, So that's the official information,
Maximus Ogbonna, president of the Association of the Nigerian Community in Guangzhou in China. I want to thank you very much indeed. And you're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat about allegations of a backlash against Africans in China over COVID-19. Stay with us.